He was trapped in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Alone, no food, no water. His raft was the size of a bathtub. Sharks circled below. Storms hit from above. And for the next 76 days, he survived with nothing but rainwater, raw fish, and hope. This is the most insane survival story you've never heard, and it's 100% real. What you're about to hear will make you question everything you think you know about human endurance. Before we dive into this incredible story of he survived 76 days lost at sea, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because what this man went through will change the way you look at survival forever. The dream turns into a nightmare. So here's the thing. Stephen Callahan was living the dream. He was 29, an experienced sailor, and he'd just built his own 21-foot sailboat called the Napoleon Solo. Yeah, I know, great name, right? This wasn't some rich guy's yacht. This was a small boat that he'd poured his heart and soul into building. In January 1982, Stephen decided to sail solo across the Atlantic Ocean, from the Canary Islands to the Caribbean. Sounds romantic, doesn't it? Just him, the open ocean, and complete freedom. What could go wrong? Well, everything. 6 days into his journey, Stephen was sleeping below deck when he heard it. A loud bang that shook the entire boat. He woke up to freezing cold water rushing into his cabin. The boat was sinking, and he had maybe 5 minutes before it went under completely. Now here's where most people would panic and die. But Stephen grabbed his emergency bag, inflated his life raft, and managed to get out just as his beautiful sailboat disappeared beneath the waves. In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. At night. In a storm. And that's when the real nightmare began. The horrible realization, picture this. You're floating in a rubber raft that's about 6 feet long and 4 feet wide. That's smaller than most bathroom stalls. You've got a few basic supplies. A solar still for making drinking water, a spear gun, some flares, and that's about it. Stephen looked around and realized something that would break most people's minds. No one was coming. He was hundreds of miles from any shipping lane. His radio was destroyed. His emergency beacon, also destroyed when the boat sank. The first few days were brutal. The solar still, which was supposed to turn seawater into drinking water, barely produced a few ounces per day. That's not even close to what a human needs to survive. Stephen was already getting dehydrated, and he hadn't even figured out the food situation yet. You know what's crazy? He actually tried to swim back to where his boat sank, thinking maybe he could recover some supplies. But after swimming for hours in the middle of the Atlantic, he realized he was just wasting energy he couldn't afford to lose. By day 10, Stephen had lost about 20 pounds. He was hallucinating from dehydration. His lips were cracked and bleeding, and he was starting to understand a terrifying truth. He wasn't going to last much longer like this. Becoming something else, alright. So here's where Stephen's story gets really wild. Instead of giving up, something clicked in his brain. He stopped thinking like a civilized human and started thinking like, well, an animal. He noticed that flying fish would sometimes land in his raft at night. These fish were trying to escape bigger predators underwater, and they'd accidentally fly right into his lap. Stephen started staying awake all night, catching these fish with his bare hands. But here's the thing. He had to eat them raw. No fire, no cooking, just raw fish. And not just the meat. Everything. The eyes, the guts, the scales, because his body needed every single nutrient it could get. The solar still was still barely working, so Stephen got creative. When it rained, which wasn't often, he'd use every piece of fabric, every container, even his own clothes to collect rainwater. He'd wring out his shirt and drink the dirty water that came out. That's how desperate he was. By day 20, Stephen looked like a completely different person. His hair was bleached white from the sun. His skin was covered in salt sores and sunburn. He'd lost so much weight that his ribs were showing through his skin. But the worst part, the sharks. They'd started following his raft, circling underneath him, day and night. Stephen could see their shadows through the thin rubber bottom of his raft. One puncture, one bite, and he was done. He was becoming less human and more animal with each passing day. Nature fights back now. You might think Stephen had figured things out by this point. He was catching fish, collecting rainwater, and somehow still alive after a month. But the ocean wasn't done with him yet. Around day 35, a massive storm hit. We're talking about waves that were 20 feet high, winds that could flip his tiny raft like a pancake. Stephen spent hours being thrown around like he was inside a washing machine. The raft flipped over multiple times, and each time he had to swim underneath it to flip it back over. That storm destroyed half of his supplies. His fishing spear was damaged. Some of his water containers were lost. And worst of all, his solar still was barely functioning. But wait, it gets worse. A few days later, Stephen was trying to spear a fish when a 6-foot shark decided it wanted the same fish. The shark charged at Stephen's spear, missed the fish, and punched a hole right through the bottom of his raft. Picture this. You're 1,000 miles from land. Your raft is deflating, and there's an angry shark right below you. Stephen had to plug the hole with his finger while trying to inflate the raft with a manual pump. One hand plugging the hole, one hand pumping air, and sharks circling below. How is this man still alive? The hallucinations were getting worse too. Stephen would see ships on the horizon that weren't there. He'd have conversations with imaginary people. His diary from this period is honestly terrifying to read. He was losing his mind, but somehow his body kept going. Then, around day 50, Stephen saw something that almost broke him. A real ship. Not a hallucination. A massive cargo ship heading right toward him. Stephen fired every flare he had left. He waved his arms. He screamed until his voice gave out. The ship sailed right past him. They never saw him. More dead than alive by day 60, Stephen Callahan weighed about 105 pounds. He'd started as a healthy 160-pound man. Do the math. He was literally wasting away, one day at a time. His body was eating itself to survive. His muscles were gone. His face looked like a skull with skin stretched over it. When he looked at his reflection in the water, he didn't recognize himself. The mental games were getting darker too. Stephen started carving messages into his raft, just in case someone found his body. He wrote letters to his family that he knew they'd never read. He was preparing to die, but then something amazing happened. On day 76, Stephen woke up to the sound of voices. Real voices. Not hallucinations. A group of fishermen from Guadeloupe had spotted something strange floating in the water. When they got closer, they saw what looked like a skeleton sitting in a deflated raft. That skeleton was Stephen Callahan. The fishermen later said they almost didn't stop because they thought it was just debris. But something made them take a closer look. When they pulled Stephen onto their boat, he could barely speak. He weighed 105 pounds and could barely stand up. He was more dead than alive, but he had made it. The aftermath. What doesn't kill you, Stephen? Spent weeks in the hospital recovering. His body was so damaged that doctors weren't sure he'd ever be normal again. But slowly, very slowly, he got better. You know what's wild? Stephen didn't just survive this experience. He thrived afterward. He wrote a best-selling book called Adrift that became the gold standard for survival stories. He became a consultant for survival equipment companies, helping them design better life rafts and emergency gear. Today, Stephen's story is still used to train rescue teams and survival experts around the world. Because what he did shouldn't have been possible. 76 days in a life raft with minimal supplies. Most survival experts say that's a death sentence. But here's what Stephen figured out that most people never do. Survival isn't just about your body, it's about your mind. Every day, Stephen made a choice to keep going. Even when he was hallucinating. Even when sharks were circling. Even when ships passed him by. He never gave up hope. The power of the human spirit. So what can we learn from Stephen Callahan's incredible story? Maybe it's that humans are capable of way more than we think. Maybe it's that hope is the most powerful survival tool we have. Or maybe it's just that sometimes, when everything goes wrong, ordinary people can do extraordinary things. Stephen survived 76 days lost at sea, with nothing but rainwater, raw fish, and an unbreakable will to live. His story reminds us that no matter how bad things get, no matter how hopeless the situation seems, there's always a reason to keep fighting. Because you never know, rescue might be just one more day away. If Stephen's story inspired you, hit that like button and share this video. Let me know in the comments. What's the most challenging situation you've ever had to survive? And do you forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories of human survival and resilience. Thanks for watching, and remember, you're stronger than you think you are. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the amazing stories of human endurance that prove we're capable of surviving almost anything.